and welcome to a tutorial on setting up the Bridget Transcribe system, a tool that utilizes powerful AI technology for recording, transcribing and then reformatting your notes based on a template that suits you. So to begin with, we're going to set up our microphone. So first thing to do is make sure that your microphone is plugged into the computer, and then from the top of the screen we're going to select My Settings followed by Configure Microphone Options. So when we initially open this dialog, we'll see that there's no audio source selected. So let's select the microphone that we're going to be using from our drop down. Now the next thing we want to do is set up what is called the silence threshold. Now what is the silence threshold? Well, basically it's a way of filtering out any background ambient noise. For example, it may be conversations in a different room, or it may be the sound of equipment that's running in the surgery on a permanent basis. You might even want to be performing this setup in surgery so that it can account for any background noise. Basically, we want the AI to be able to pick up only what is clearly spoken into the microphone and filter out any background noise. So that's really what this silence threshold is. So what we're going to do is press the test transcription button, and we're going to remain silent for about 10 seconds. Now you might just, as I say, shuffle in your seat or move your keyboard slightly just to create a bit of ambient noise if there isn't any in the background, or as I say, perform this in surgery itself. So we're going to test the transcription and remain silent for 10 seconds. Now we can see the maximum volume that was recorded whilst we were remaining silent. So what we need to do is set our silence threshold to around that number, maybe a little bit higher. You'll probably find that with most microphones the silence threshold is between 6 and 10. So that's roughly where you're looking. Some microphones are much more sensitive and you need to have them at a lower silence threshold, but nevertheless in this instance I'm going to set my silence threshold to, let's say, 8. So now we've done that, we can actually test the transcription service and see how accurate it is. So let's do that now by simply pressing the test transcription button, and we'll see what happens now that we've set the silence threshold properly. I'm testing to see whether the transcription service is recording and interpreting correctly. I'm hoping it will pick up only my voice and not any background sounds that may be occurring. Testing to see whether it's interpreting correctly. I'm hoping it will pick up and not any. Excellent. So as you can see, the AI is transcribing what we're saying very accurately. So now we're ready to try it out on our clinical notes. Press OK. So that's configured our microphone properly. So to test it out on a clinical note, let's go into a patient record, and we just need to be able to open up a clinical note. So if I select my examination here, I'm going to add a clinical note. And notice that we have a new button on our clinical note which is called Manage Transcription Templates. So this section is vital because it's going to allow us to define how the AI should format our spoken notes and rearrange them into a standardized format that we want to personally use. So let's do that. Manage Transcription Templates. At the moment we don't have any templates set up, so let's add our first one. So the first thing we'd normally do is assign a unique code. This is something that it will be descriptive and will mean something to us, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Now on the left we have some standardized or suggested headings. Now these are built in as standard into the program, and they're designed to save you time in setting up your own heading definitions, but you can add and edit and delete them as you see fit. So notice if I have a look, for example, at each heading, I will see some instructions that are behind those headings. So the instructions for the chief complaint, if I just select edit heading here, I can see, yes, the heading is called chief complaint, but notice the instructions that are given to the AI as to when to apply this heading. Mention chief complaint along with the duration. Now you can see there are multiple instructions that we can also insert here, which we might want to add to in order to make the chief complaint definition even more succinct. Some of these are quite simple. For example, for diagnosis, if I just edit the heading there, list or mention diagnoses one by one. That's fairly basic instructions. But for something like an intraoral examination, the instructions are a bit more complicated. So you can see here we've got mention, describe any soft tissue examination findings, including findings on gingival examination, hard tissue examination. So this is really carefully itemizing exactly the kind of things we want to see in our intraoral examination. And as I say, this is all preset for you, so you don't need to do it, but you might want to modify it slightly or add further instructions to those headings. And you'll find this is the same for all of these different headings. If I edit the heading for treatment, you can see there's further instructions that are giving list and describe treatment plans, recommendations one by one, etc. So these are the headings that are built in. As I say, you can add new ones if you want to, edit the ones that are there, or even delete them entirely if you feel you'll never use them. But we don't recommend deleting them, as they could be useful in the future. So now we want to set up our transcription template. So for this, I'm just going to call this one our standard transcription template. And I'm going to format my template in the following way. I want the chief complaint first of all, and then I want the diagnoses, and then I'll do an intraoral examination, and then I'm going to put the radiographic findings and the treatment. So this is the order in which my clinical note is going to be formatted. I can, of course, add further ones, so I could do a prognosis, add that in, but if I wanted to see the prognosis before the radiographic findings, for example, then I can just simply use the up and down arrows here to move them up and down in my template. So now we have completed the format of our transcription template. So I'm going to press OK. So now we have a single transcription template that we can use to apply to our spoken notes. So let's do that and see how effective it's going to be. So back in our clinical note, if I hit the begin transcribe button, it will immediately begin transcribing what I'm saying. So I'm not going to press it quite yet because there's further things to say. So every time we pause for roughly a second or so, the software will interpret what we've said so far, so we can follow along as it translates. So I'm just going to describe a clinical note, and we'll do that right from the outset of beginning our transcription. So the patient presented with complaints of pain in the lower right jaw. He's had that for the past 2 weeks, especially when he's chewing or consuming cold drinks. On examination, the lower right 6 shows signs of decay on the occlusal surface with sensitivity to cold stimulus. No visible swelling or signs of infection in the surrounding gingival tissue. A radiographic evaluation confirms caries extending into the dentin without pulpal involvement. So I plan to do a composite restoration to restore function and relieve sensitivity. The patient was informed about the procedure, the risks and the alternatives, and he's consented to proceed. So as you can see, the Bridget AI has very accurately transcribed what's been said, which is a great start. But now we want to apply our standard template that we created earlier to reformat it into something that we can use. So let's do that and see what is generated. Select my standard template and apply. So as you can see, this has reformatted and accurately rendered the information we've spoken and made it very easy to read for future reference. So it's described our chief complaint, the diagnosis, our intraoral examination, and of course shown with the treatment exactly what we plan to do in order to solve the problem. So at this point we're ready to save and close. And that clinical note is now permanently recorded in the clinical note. So once that's done, I can press OK. Now, if we ever want to see the history of that note, we can always simply edit the note once again, and you'll see that this button here, Show Transcription History, is shown. So if I just press that, it will always show us the original text that was originally transcribed, and then also the converted text that it managed to transcribe from that original speech. And that's it. We hope you've enjoyed this video, and we hope that you'll make use of this exceptionally valuable and advanced tool within your own practice.